to g7 to defend it, well, then he also loses the game because then I play a knight f5 check and I fork the king and the queen. If so his only real sensible move would be to play rook f7, and then rook g7. Then, if I took his queen, then he would just take my queen. If that would happen, then I would either play queen takes this pawn, queen takes h5, or I could still fork the rook. In other words, I could still play knight f5 check and fork the king and the rook. He'd have to move the king. I'd take the rook with the knight. He'd retake, and I would have won the exchange. In other words, I would have won a knight for a rook. I'd still, again, I don't think that would be decisive necessarily, although maybe I could have continued the attack and won the game that way. But at least I would have been up material instead of down material. But I saw something, and I really it is the situation of where I looked 2 moves into the future, and I should have looked 3 moves into the future. I decided that I looked at this, and this is still a blitz game. Remember, this is only like maybe this was 10 minutes a person. I forget exactly, but I played queen takes d7 check because I realized his only move was because of the fact that I opened up a discovery on the queen. His only move was to take the queen. Then I take my queen, and I figured, hey, I won a knight, right? I won the knight back, and I still have the extra 2 pawns, so I'm winning the game. Right? Well, that wasn't a very smart move, because yes, he has to play queen takes d7, and yes, I play rook takes f6, but then the next move, which for some reason I wasn't paying attention to, is bishop e7. And now he's skewered my rook and my knight, and I can't move back to f4 to protect the knight, because this pawn is protecting that square. So now, this is where I compounded my mistake. I realized right away that I had made a mistake. All right, I'm down a little material. Still, I don't think I'm in I don't think I'm in a terrible situation. At least what I should have done was played rook f7. I'm sorry, rook f5 over here, or rook h6, so that at least I'd win a pawn in compensation, and then he'd win that piece back, but then I'd win a pawn. So overall in material we'd be even. Then maybe he'd take this pawn, maybe he'd be up by a pawn, but overall, I think the game still would have been very close to even. Somebody even suggested that maybe I should do the exchange. Somebody suggested on the red hot pawn boards that maybe I should do the exchange sacrifice. I should play d takes e5, and then when he takes the rook, I take it back, and then I'm down a rook to a piece, but I have 2 devastating passed pawns over here that if I protect them adequately with my knight and my rook, maybe I could do a little bit of a pawn march over here and maybe threaten to queen them, try to march down the middle. But the material would be about even, and either way I would be okay in that respect. But I made a bad move. I played rook f7. Figuring just, again, without even really thinking about it well enough, that, hey, I'm pinning the bishop, so now the bishop can't take the knight, so next move I can move the knight away, probably to f5, and everybody's happy. Well, again, that didn't work out too well, because he simply played king e6. And again, I compounded it with a mistake. I, again, figured, well, because now obviously I can't just move the knight, because then the rook falls. So, I figured, well, okay, then at least double up the rooks and play rook af1. So even though he's going to get the knight, at least I have doubled up rooks in the open file, which is, I guess, so far as it goes, not a terrible idea, in the first place. But I could have had a pawn in compensation, which I didn't. If I would have instead played rook h7, then when he took the knight with the bishop, I could just take the h5 pawn, and at least then, in that case, I'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pawns, and he'd have 1, 2, 3, 4. So he'd be up a bishop to 3 pawns, which is basically even. Now, what he did, once I played rook af1, and then he played bishop take h4, now he's up by a pawn. He's up by, well, he's behind by 2 pawns, and he has an extra bishop, so he's really up by a point in material. So now, at this point, my mindset really changed. I mean, I had the open file and all that, but my mindset kind of changed from trying to win the game to trying to draw the game. I played d takes e5, figuring eventually I have to trade off that pawn. He takes king takes e5. Now, I played rook 1 to f5 check. I want to try to squeeze the king. Now, obviously, he can't take this pawn, because if he takes this pawn, then I come down here, rook f4 check, he has to move the king, and then I take the bishop for free, and I'm winning the game. So he realizes that he only has 2 moves with the king. He has to move to, to this rank. He has to move to the 6th rank. He plays king e6, I guess to keep the pressure up on my rooks, because now I can't take this pawn. If he would have played king d6, I could have just taken this pawn over here with this rook, but then this rook would hang now, so I can't do that. I move my rook over to h7. Now he plays rook a d8. In retrospect, it was probably a mistake, but at this point it looks like a very powerful move, because he's threatening checkmate. You realize if it's his move, what does he do? He has, I'm sorry, it's not checkmate. He is, well, okay, I'm sorry. If he moves down here, my king couldn't escape. This rook would be able to come back. But, and then he would trade off the rooks, and he'd probably be winning anyway. So I played rook h6 check. He has to move back to e7 or to d7. He probably should have played d7 in retrospect to enable the escape square of the king. Because of the fact that he played king e7 instead of d7, clearly why he did it is because he wanted to keep this file open. Remember, his idea is that if this rook ever leaves this file, ever leaves the f file, for example, if the rook takes this h pawn, then he comes down here and it's checkmate. Because, he has the check on the king, and this escape square of my king is covered by his bishop. So he played king e7 because he wanted to make sure that this file stays open. I played rook h7 check. Again, with the same basic idea. He could either move here or here, and then I would just move back and do the same thing all over again. So he moves to the back rank, king e8, and once he did that, I thought about it for a few seconds, and I realized I have a draw. I played rook e5 check. He can't move out of this position. He can't move out of this rank because this rook is covering this rank. He can't move the bishop in front because this spot is attacked twice. He can't move his bishop to e7, so because it's attacked twice by the rooks, I would just take it and I would win it for free. So he moves back to king f8, and because I'm behind in material and he's got a checkmate if I'm not careful, I just play rook f5 check, king e8, and rook e5 check, and we just go back and forth. So at this point, we just agreed to a draw because we were just by perpetual check. So, again, the lesson I took from this game is that, well, first of all, make sure you have the right moves when you're trying to finish off an attack. Don't automatically assume that you're going to win a game just because the other person doesn't play a very good opening and you have a nice, pretty attack. And also, if you make a bad move, that's fine. You can still salvage the game. You can still win the game. At least you can still draw the game. Don't, think about the next move. Don't just automatically think, oh, I just threw it away. I just have to move whatever. If you stay patient, you can still salvage something from the game. Like I almost blew by making a couple of moves that were too quick. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and if you have any comments, of course, please feel free to leave them. And have a good day, everybody.